Come on in and sit down. Let's thread up. There are a handful of little sewing techniques that separate a homemade look from a beautifully made one. That's the whole difference. Not talent, not an expensive machine, not years and years of practice. Just a handful of quiet, professional touches, most of them done in seconds. And here's the honest truth of it. 99 out of 100 sewers were simply never shown them. In the years I taught sewing, these were the exact techniques that made my students gasp. I'd show one a single little step and someone would put her hand to her mouth and say, "That's it? That's the secret?" And it was. These are the little steps the pattern instructions skip right over, assuming you already know them. Most of us never did, and we spent years wondering why our things looked handmade in the way you don't want, while the shop garment looked so crisp and clean. I'll be honest with you, before we start, I taught most of these the slow, clumsy, wrong way myself for years before I ever found the better one. So we'll learn them properly together, and nobody's paying me a penny to show you any of it. This is just what I dearly wish someone had sat me down and shown me 30 years ago and saved me all that unpicking. I've gathered the very best of them into one place. There are 14. We are going to take our very sweet time with each one because these are worth learning slowly, once, so they stay with you for good. So pour yourself a cup of tea, keep a little scrap of fabric beside you if you'd like to try along, and let's begin. And do stay with me all the way to number 8. That's the one folks stop me in the grocery store to thank me for. Number 1, Staystitching. This is the very first secret, because it happens before almost everything else, and skipping it is why so many lovely necklines end up stretched and wavy and never sit right again. Here's what's going on. Anytime you cut a curved edge, a neckline, an armhole, the top of a skirt, that curve is cut partly on the bias, the diagonal of the fabric, and the bias stretches like elastic. Just handling the piece, carrying it across the room to the machine, pinning it, can pull it out of shape a quarter inch or more without you ever seeing it happen. And a stretched neckline gapes and ripples forever after. Staystitching stops it dead. The very moment you've cut your pieces, before you sew a single seam, you run one line of ordinary straight stitching, a scant half-inch from that raw curved edge, through the single layer of fabric, stitching in the direction the pattern marks, usually from the shoulder seam down toward the center front, both sides. Down from the shoulder on each side, so you're never stretching against yourself. That one quiet line of thread holds the curve exactly the shape you cut it, and nothing you do afterward can pull it out of true. It takes 30 seconds, it never shows on the finished garment, and it saves the whole thing. Nobody ever showed me Staystitching. I found it in an old book years in. Number 2, Understitching. Now, if you learn only one thing from me today, let it be this one. It is the single biggest tell between homemade and beautifully made, and hardly anyone out there knows it even exists. You know how effacing the piece that finishes a raw neckline or an armhole on the inside always seems to want to roll out and peek at the world? You're wearing the blouse, and there's a little flash of the inside fabric creeping out right at the edge of the neckline, and it looks, well, homemade. Understitching is the cure, and it is so simple once someone shows you. After you've sewn the facing on and trimmed and graded that seam, we'll get to grading in a moment, you press both seam allowances toward the facing, away from the garment. Then, working from the right side of the facing, you stitch through the facing and both of those seam allowances underneath, close to the seam line, about 1/8 of an inch from it, but not through the garment itself, just the facing and the allowances. That single line of stitching gently pulls the seam to the underside and teaches the facing to roll to the inside and stay tucked away where it belongs for the life of the garment. Press it once more and it will never roll out again. I taught for years before I truly understood understitching, and the day it finally clicked for me, my sewing changed for good. Take your time with this one. Do it slowly. There's no prize for rushing it. Number 3, pressing as you go, and pressing is not the same thing as ironing. Let me slow right down here, because this is the one that costs you absolutely nothing and changes everything about how your work looks. Here is the rule the professionals live by, and it never changes. Press every seam before you cross it with another seam, every single one. You sew a seam, you get up, you take it to the ironing board, you press it, and only then do you go back to the machine for the next one. It feels slow, up and down, back and forth to the iron. It is, in truth, the very opposite of slow, because it's what makes the finished garment look crisp and tailored instead of lumpy and puckered. A seam that's been crossed by another seam without being pressed first is a lump you can never fully press out later. And pressing is not ironing. Ironing is that dragging, sliding, back and forth motion, wonderful for a shirt on laundry day, but it stretches and distorts a seam you're in the middle of building. Pressing is lift, set down, hold a moment, lift again, straight down and straight up, letting the heat and a little steam do the work. And for a curved seam, a dart, a princess seam, the round of a sleeve cap, press it over a tailor's ham, that firm little cushion shaped like, well, a ham. So you press the curve in rather than flattening it out. If you haven't a ham, a tightly rolled up towel will stand in beautifully. Press as you go, and honestly, half your battle is already won before you've done anything clever at all. Number 4, grading your seam allowances. This is how the professionals melt away bulk, so a collar or a cuff turns thin and crisp, and once you see it, you will never stop doing it. Anywhere you have a seam enclosed inside 2 layers, a collar, a cuff, a waistband, a faced neckline, you've got several layers of fabric and interfacing all stacked together in that seam allowance, and that stack makes a hard, thick ridge that shows right through to the front as a clumsy line. Grading is how you make it disappear. After you sew the seam, you trim each layer of the seam allowance to a slightly different width. The layer that sits nearest the outside of the garment you leave the widest. The layers underneath you trim narrower and narrower still. So instead of one thick cliff of fabric all ending in the same place, you've made a gentle little staircase that steps down out of sight. Press it, and it flattens away to nothing. On a collar or a cuff, grade that seam, then understitch or press it well, turn it out, and it comes crisp and thin and sharp, just like something off a good shop's shelf. It's such a small pair of scissor strokes for such a professional result. Number 5, clipping and notching your curves and knowing which is which, because they are exact opposites and folks mix them up all the time. When you sew a curved seam and turn it right side out, the seam allowance has to travel a different distance than the finished edge does. And if you don't help it, it bunches, it pulls, it puckers, and your lovely curve looks lumpy. Here's the rule. On an inner curve, a neckline, the inside of a curve, where the fabric has to spread open to lie flat, you clip. You snip little cuts straight in toward the stitching line, every ½ inch or so, and those little cuts let the edge spread apart and relax flat. On an outer curve, the rounded end of a collar, the outside of a curve, where the fabric has to squeeze together, you notch. You cut little wedges out, little V-shapes, so the fabric has somewhere to go when it folds in on itself instead of bunching up. Clip the inner curves, notch the outer ones. Say it with me a few times and it sticks. And whichever you're doing, be ever so careful never to snip through your actual stitching line. A hair's breadth away from it is quite close enough. Number 6, trimming your corners before you turn them. A small one. This. But oh, the difference in a sharp collar point, a crisp cushion corner, a neat pocket flap. When you sew a corner and turn it right side out, all of that seam allowance jams up inside the point and gives you a sad, rounded, blunt little corner, no matter how careful you were at the machine. So before you turn it, you snip across the corner diagonally, close to the stitching, cutting off that little triangle of bulk that would otherwise bunch inside. On a very sharp point, a shirt collar, a lapel, take a couple of little snips down each side of the point as well to shave away even more. Then turn it right side out and gently, ever so gently, push the point out from the inside. Use a point turner if you have one, or the blunt end of a wooden chopstick, or a knitting needle. Never, ever your scissor points, or a pin that is exactly how you poke a hole right through the corner of your beautiful work at the very last step. Coax it out patiently, give it a press, and you get a corner sharp enough to cut the cake with. Number 7, edge stitching and top stitching with a guide so that your line runs arrow straight instead of wandering. That neat, even line of stitching you see running along the edge of a good collar, or a pocket, or a shirt placket that isn't a steady hand and a held breath. That's a clever little setup, and there are two easy ways to get it. The first, move your needle position all the way over to one side. Then drop your presser foot so the edge of the foot rides right along the fold or the edge of the fabric. And let the edge of the foot be your fence. The needle stays a perfect, even distance from the edge the whole way down because the foot can't wander. The second, and even better, use an edge joining foot, sometimes called a stitch in the ditch foot. It has a little metal blade or flange down the center that you run right in the groove of the seam or against the edge, and it steers the fabric for you like a guide rail. Either way, the real secret is to go slowly and to keep your eye on the guide, the edge of the foot, and not on the needle itself. Watch the fence, not the point, and your line comes out straight as if you'd drawn it with a ruler. Number 8. Securing your thread tails properly on top stitching, the one folks always stop me to thank me for. Here's the trouble it solves. When you top stitch somewhere that shows the top of a patch pocket, a hemline, a decorative line, and you backstitch at the ends to lock it off, that little clump of back and forth stitching sits right there on display for all the world, and it looks homemade every time. So here's what the professionals do instead. They don't backstitch on the right side at all. You sew right off the end of your line, leaving good long thread tails 4 or 5 inches. Then you pull the top thread through to the back. There's a lovely little trick to it. Give the bobbin thread a gentle tug from the underside, and you'll see the top thread poke through the fabric as a tiny loop. Grab that loop with a pin and pull it all the way through to the back. Now both threads are together on the wrong side, out of sight. Tie them off in a neat little knot, snug against the fabric, or thread them both into a hand needle and bury them between the layers of fabric so they never show at all. And from the front, your line of stitching simply begins and ends, clean and crisp, with not a single lock stitch in sight. That is the professional's secret, hiding right there in plain view on every good garment. There are no mistakes here, only the next stitch. Number 9. Interfacing the right way and always testing it first on a scrap. Interfacing is that layer you add inside collars, cuffs, waistbands, and button plackets to give them body and structure, so they stand up crisp instead of going limp and sad and floppy after one wear. 2 things nobody ever tells you about it. First, match the weight of the interfacing to your fabric. A lightweight fabric wants a lightweight interfacing. Put a heavy, stiff interfacing behind a soft blouse fabric, and you'll get a collar like a piece of cardboard that looks store-bought in the very worst way. Feel them together before you commit. Second, and this is the one that saves projects, if you're using fusible interfacing, the iron-on kind, test it on a scrap first, every single time, without fail. Some fusibles bubble and blister. Some show their little rows of glue dots right through a thin or a dark fabric. Some won't grab a textured or a water-repellent weave at all. So fuse a scrap of your actual fabric, following the heat and time and steam the interfacing calls for. Let it cool completely, and then look at it and bend it. 2 minutes of testing saves you a ruined collar and an evening of grief. Nobody paid me a penny to tell you that. It's just been true every single year I've sewn. Number 10. Pivoting at corners, needle down, foot up, turn, foot down. So many people sew right up to a corner, lift everything clean off the machine, drag the fabric around by hand, line it up again by eye, and start sewing afresh, and the corner comes out ragged, with a little gap or a jog where the 2 lines don't quite meet. The professional way is one single smooth connected move, and it's so simple. You sew right up to the corner. You stop with the needle down in the fabric, and here's the key. Turn the hand wheel toward you by hand for that very last stitch, so the needle lands exactly on the corner point, not a stitch shy and not a stitch past. Now, with the needle still down in the fabric holding your exact place, you lift the presser foot. You pivot the whole piece of fabric a quarter turn around that planted needle, like a hinge. You drop the presser foot back down, and you carry on stitching. Because the needle never once left the fabric, the corner comes out as one continuous, Sharp, connected turn, no gap, no jog. Sharp square corners every single time. Number 11. Testing your stitch and your tension on the real fabric doubled before you ever touch your project. We all want to dive straight into the good part, I know, but 2 minutes here saves you a whole evening of picking out stitches, so let me press on it. Before you sew a single stitch on your actual garment, take a scrap of the very same fabric you're about to use, the same fabric, not a bit of something else from the drawer, and fold it double, so it's 2 layers, just like your real seam will be. Sew a test line down it. Now stop and really look at it. Is the stitch length right for this fabric? Not so long, it looks loose and gappy on a fine cotton. Not so short, it puckers. And is the tension balanced? No little loops sitting up on the top, no loops pulling underneath, both threads meeting neatly hidden in the middle of the fabric? If it's not right, adjust it there, on the scrap, and never on your project. Every fabric wants slightly different settings, and the machine simply cannot guess what you've put under the foot. This is the humble 2-minute habit that separates a calm, happy sewing evening from a frustrating one. And I do it every time to this day. Number 12. Finishing your raw edges so that the inside of your garment is every bit as lovely as the outside, and so it lasts for years. Turn a good store garment inside out and you'll see every seam neatly finished, so it will never fray. Turn many a homemade one inside out and the raw edges are already whiskering and unraveling apart after a wash or two, and eventually the seam itself gives way. Finish those edges and your garment lasts and lasts. The simplest way is a plain zigzag stitch run along each raw edge, or a 3-step zigzag on stretchier fabrics, which lies flatter. Pinking shears, those zigzag-bladed scissors work well enough on a fabric that doesn't fray badly. If you have a serger, well, this is exactly what it's for. And if you'd like a truly beautiful finish on an unlined jacket or a special piece, there's the Hong Kong finish, where you wrap each raw edge in a thin strip of bias binding. It's a little more work, but the inside comes out even prettier than the outside, and it's a joy to open the jacket and see it. But even the humble zigzag is worlds and worlds better than a raw edge left to fray. A garment that's finished on the inside is a garment made with love, and it shows. Number 13. Matching your seams where they cross. The professionals call it nesting, and it's how a plaid lines up and a waistband meets the seams below it as if by magic. Here's the trouble it solves. When 2 seams have to cross, say the side seam of a bodice meeting the side seam of a skirt right at the waist, if those 2 seams don't meet exactly, the eye catches it at once, and the whole garment looks a little off, though most folks couldn't tell you why. The fix is so simple and so satisfying. Press the 2 seam allowances you're about to cross in opposite directions, one pressed toward the front, the other toward the back. Now, when you bring the 2 pieces right sides together, those 2 seams butt up against each other and lock, or nest, one little pressed ridge sitting snug against the other. You can actually feel them click into place with your fingertips. Pin right through that spot, push the pin straight down through both seam lines so they can't shift a hair, and sew slowly over it. When you open it out, the 2 seams meet in one clean, continuous, unbroken line. For a plaid or a stripe, this nesting is the whole secret to making the pattern march right across the seam without a jog. Take your time lining it up before you pin. That 30 seconds of care is the difference between a garment that looks made and one that looks bought. Number 14. A truly even hem, measured, marked, and pressed, never just folded up by eye at the machine. A crooked or a lumpy hem will quietly undo all the lovely work above it, because the hem is the first thing a person's eye travels down to. So here is how the professionals do it. First, let the garment hang for a day before you hem it, especially anything with a full skirt or cut on the bias, because the fabric settles and drops as it hangs. And if you hem it the same hour you sewed it, you may find it gone uneven a week later. Then mark your hem all the way around at an even distance up from the floor or up from a line, with a ruler and some chalk. There's a lovely little marking tool that puffs a line of chalk at whatever height you set it, worth its weight in gold for a skirt. Turn the hem up to your marked line, and press it well before you pin. Press it, mind, don't just fold it and start sewing, or you'll set ripples right in. And for the stitching itself, you've a choice. A neat double fold with a straight top stitch is sturdy and simple. Or, for a hem that shows no stitching at all from the right side, learn the blind hem. Your machine very likely has a blind hem stitch, and a special little foot for it that catches just a thread or two of the garment every few stitches, so from the front you truly see nothing. Measure it, mark it, press it, and your hem finishes the whole garment off like a good frame around a picture. Let me slow right down now, and let's gather these 14 up together before you go. No new information at all, just the list once more, so they settle in properly and stay with you. 1. Stay stitch your curves before you handle them. 2. Understitch your facings so they never roll out. 3. Press as you go, and press, don't iron. 4. Grade your seam allowances to melt away the bulk. 5. Clip the inner curves and notch the outer ones. 6. Trim your corners before you turn them. 7. Edge stitch with a guide for a straight line. 8. Pull your top stitch tails through to the back and bury them. 9. Interface to match your fabric, and test the fusible on a scrap first. 10. Pivot at corners with the needle down. 11. Test your stitch and tension on a doubled scrap. 12. Finish your raw edges so it all lasts. 13. Nest your seams where they cross so everything lines up. And 14. Mark and press an even hem instead of folding it up by eye. Not a single one of those needs a fancy machine or a lick of talent or a fashion degree. They only ever needed someone to show you, and now someone has. There are no mistakes here, only the next stitch, and the next one you make is going to be a little more beautiful than the last. Tell me down in the comments which of these 14 did you already know, and which one is brand new to you today. I read every single comment, truly, and I would love to know which one surprised you the most. And if there's a beginner sewer in your life just starting out, do send this along to her and save her all the years it took me to learn them the hard way. Take your time, be kind to your fingers, and I'll see you back in the sewing room.